I didn't realize this right at Google, but we had the most amazingly efficient, I would call it go-to-market engine. By using machine learning at its core and using machine learning to then drive your go-to-market, your FLG, your PLG, and having everything aligned, the compensation of your FLG and your PLG, and giving that end visibility on the customers on where they sit and what they should be doing. Everything is aligned, everything is driven by a machine learning engine that made the go-to-market so efficient.
Even the bigger, the late stage startups today, they don't have it. So like everything is still experimentation, obviously, but manual. It's not been driven by algorithmic approach.
Exactly, and Google has been working on it for like 20 years, right? It's that's why the go-to-market motion is so efficient. You can see, right, on LinkedIn, you can look at how many sellers are driving this 100+ billion. So the ROI is through the roof.
So man, honestly, Jean-Mathieu, I'm very thankful to have you here on this podcast. It's literally just a conversation. This is why I enjoy it. Like, it's not formal. It's like having actually opportunity to talk to smart people. How cool is that? So I'm enjoying myself. Let's have some fun. I did a little bit of a research, and we also talked before. And today, just before this episode, I just wrote like a few things. I was thinking how to introduce you, and I created a list. So, from your permission, I will do a small attempt to sum up your fascinating career in 20 seconds.
All right, go for it.
Go for it. So, the career is indeed fascinating, and here is why. So, you started as an engineer in NVIDIA, which is, by the way, today the biggest company in the world. So, I don't know, maybe you should have stayed there. So, check.
I wonder sometimes.
Yeah, I know. You ventured after it on an entrepreneurship journey, I think for 2 years, which is super cool. So entrepreneurship, check. You did an MBA on in the coolest school ever, which is Wharton. I think it's like top one, top two, top three. Like it depends on the ranking. Then you became a partner at McKinsey. After that, you transitioned to growth roles at Google, and today you're leading growth product at Databricks. And if someone would have to sum everything up, I would say you're a dream of every Jewish grandma. 100%. And I
Tell me
have one.
more.
I had one, to be honest, which is sad, but 100%. So, honestly, I would have so many topics I want to discuss today, but we don't have all the time in the world. So, in to highlight the big ones, I would definitely love to talk to you about your growth journey at Google. How cool is that?
Mhm.
And of course, the growth journey in Databricks. And because you have been leading teams in those spaceships, leadership. So those are the three big topics I would love to touch. Does it sound fair?
Yep, that sounds good. Yep, let's go.
Super, super. So, to kick everything, I would love to learn like how did you end up in a growth lead role at Google? Because I think before that you were in McKinsey and then you transitioned to sort of growth product role at Google. Like how did it work? How you then ended up there? Why did you decide to do it?
Yeah, I would say it's a mix of interest and luck, right? While I was at McKinsey, I focused on uh, driving growth for my clients, and they were all technology companies. So I was looking for a field where, or at least a role where, growth would be a core part of it. And then it just happened that there was this opening at Google, and at the time I was doing my search, right? And I interviewed. I loved the team.
Mm-hmm.
The job sounded
Mm-hmm.
interesting. They
Mm-hmm.
liked me, and that's how I ended up there. I knew nothing about ads. I joined Google Ads,
Mm-hmm.
but then really fell in love with the role.
Mm-hmm. 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 Super. Actually, you started to touch on it, so I will ask because like Google is well, it's huge. So I guess there are so many things growth wise to do there. So just so we can, like, have the context for our conversation about growth in Google, maybe you can describe a little bit like your domain, what you were doing there, like how did it look?
Yeah, and you're right, right? Google is for me is almost a collection of many businesses, right? We work, I would say, very much in siloed. While we talk to each other,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
the teams still operate in silo, right? From a go-to-market standpoint, from a product standpoint, every in some ways businesses within Google has its own operating model. So for me, right, I joined ads, and more specifically, more the SMB side of ads, which still is a gigantic business. Right, by the time I left, we were more than 100 billion rev. So it's not the tiny SMBs, right? It's
100
relatively large
billion, guys,
business.
like everyone, if you don't, like, don't miss this one, it's 100 million rev. This is the size of Google, this is the numbers Google operating at. Crazy.
Yeah, it's massive, right? I was telling my team, right, if we do our job well, right, and increase the revenue growth by one more percentage point, right, this is
Mm-hmm.
1 billion, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the magnitude of the impact that our work could have. Right? That's how I was getting folks excited about our work. And so within ads, right, what I really liked is the growth role, right, the product adoption role very much sits between R&D, right? So you have product managers who tend to be very technical and engineering on one side, and on the other you have the go-to-market team, right? And
Mm-hmm.
my role sat right at the junction, right, of those two big side of the organization. And so that's how we could drive product adoption growth by playing with the go-to-market on one hand, and then by defining which products to push and defining what product to build on the other side.
So just for me to understand, I want to build like picture to understand, like to visualize how it works. So what is go to market at Google Ads? What do you do exactly? And what product I understand is product market fit, everything to do with the core product, which is ads, which is huge. Obviously there are many components there, but what is the GTM part? Then if I understand that, I will understand how to connect them.
Yep. So on the GTM side, right, the role of the GTM is to sell, right? And the way
Oh,
Google
okay.
sells is not like, hey, you got to go and buy. It's, hey, I'm your advisor. All right.
Okay.
You looks like you're using Google Ads. Let me help you out, right? So it's all our sellers, it's all our sales strat and sales ops, and it's also all our product specialists as well as our technical folks that will go and support our customers in, say, migration or security or things like this.
Mm-hmm. It's the customer frontline, everything needed.
Exactly, everything that touches the customer.
So I understand those two parts of the equation. So you're pulling the strings at both. So what are the actual things? Like just an example.
So one major thing that we're driving is, and that I loved, right? Uh, At Google, we believe that by driving product adoption, this would our product would be good, right? So by driving product adoption, it would make the customer more successful, and by making the customer more successful, they would spend more, right? That was really the philosophy behind the product activation group and basically the growth strategy or the growth group within Google, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so what we would do tactically is for each of our customer segment, right? We would identify what are the very narrow set of products that we believe should be pushed per segment for our customers. Um, that if that our go-to-market should be driving, that our incentive system should be reflecting, and that our customers should be aware of, right? So we would drive this very simple set of, and I'm pointing three because usually we would just select three product per segment and be like, hey, go to market, go, right? You have 100 of products, no need to push the whole spectrum. These three, this is the future of of this segment you're in, right? And usually we would select one product that is core, and that would improve the efficiency of our customers' ad campaign. We would select one that would be more longer term beneficial for the customer, meaning that um, they would be ready for upcoming changes in the world of ads, and one that would be linked to, that would not bring them immediate revenue, but that is more foundational, right? Like measurement, like security, like things like this, right? So
Okay.
that's what we would be pushing. And this way would make it super simple for our sales team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got
Interesting.
to drive the three products. This is included in my comp structure.
Mm-hmm. 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 So,
So that's one example.
so it's literally the concept of activation, and obviously followed by engagement, which is we can call adoption, still applies. Google, no Google. It just sort of package it in a little bit a different way. Yeah. So the way you guys package this, is you identified the products, not the features, because actually big products that would help customer to sort of onboard, create the habit, and continuously engage. This is why it was like the short product, which is like, oh wow, I'm getting like those first successes, the long term one, and obviously the baseline, which they must have because otherwise it would not be able to be on the journey.
Yeah, maybe two more things, right? If you think about the Google Ads world, we used to play, at least back then, right, in a world where customers wanted to spend, but just there was not enough ways for them to do so, right? And so by improving the performance of our products, we were able to improve the performance of their campaigns, and so they would be then able to spend more of the budget that they had allocated for ads, right? Usually, customers
Interesting.
come up with what they call a CPA, a cost per action, and if you manage to be below that CPA, then they're going to send you as much money as you in some ways want, right? Because they believe that they have a high ROI on that CPA, right? And that's
Hmm.
really how Google was working. The more we could improve the performance of the campaign, the more the customer was spending.
Which is much different than other products because like you can say like let's take Miro or like let's say any other product, you come to do a job. Yeah. And if it's a productivity product, you don't want them to spend too much time. You want them to get the job in delightful experience, amazing. Then at Google, specifically at ads, they will spend as much as they can get the money from a bank, as long as the ROI is there. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I would say that probably one of the main things you guys were leveraging on were data science and analytics to understand exactly how they should
Correct.
structure their campaign, how they should be, how everything should work. So probably this was like the 80%. It's less of a, I guess, user experience, delightful journey, which is also important because you need, it's quite crucial. But I guess the analytical component was the biggest part of it. Am I correct?
Correct. Correct. Everything was data driven, right? For us as well as for the customers. I'll touch on UX at the end. It was still very important, but for example, the way my team worked, right, internally, um, I had a whole data analytics and data science team, right? Meaning that all the work that we would be doing was data driven internally. Right? As we select those products, we were doing a lot of analysis, right? Even for the products that were already in flight, we would do a lot of analysis to understand what's under the hood, what's driving the performance of these, say, YouTube ad product, right? What's really happening under the hood? Why is it working? Why is it not working? Um, and going really deep, right? Like doing clustering analysis, understanding the behaviors, understanding the journey, and going even further than in some ways a product manager would do, right? So that we would truly understand uh, the step-by-step guidance that we should give to our customers so they are successful with the product. That's on our
Mm-hmm.
side, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then on the
Mm-hmm.
customer side, we would also provide a lot of uh, analytics data, right? So uh, the more they wanted to see, the more they could, at the campaign level, at across all their campaigns at the campaign level, and then on the day by day basis. Like I don't know if you've used like say Google Analytics, but you can go very very deep in looking at the performance of your ad campaign. I'll add one more point. I think that the third dimension on analytics is the whole ads world um, is supported by a machine learning model at its core, right? If, if you've used Google Ads or any kind of ad solution, right now it's all about automatic bidding. It's all
Exactly.
about
Automation part is more dominant than before. Makes sense.
exactly, and that entire automation, right? Automation of the bidding, automation of the recommendations for what you should be doing to optimize your campaign was all driven at its core by a machine learning, extremely powerful machine learning engine. Right? This
Hmm.
was actually the foundation of all Gemini and all our kind of the Google AI solution was first implemented and developed for the ads world. So that machine learning would, for example, surface recommendations for the customers, right, on how to
Hmm.
improve their campaigns. These same recommendations would be surfaced to the sellers. And based on the impact of these recommendations, the customer would see like a certain set of points that they could just simply like click on apply and boom, it will apply and it would improve their performance score that was shared to them. And the sellers would their compensation would be tied to the impact of the recommendations that they would be able to guide the customers to apply to their campaign. So it was
Hmm.
all linked and very much aligned. PLG, FLG, all driven by a machine learning model.
Fascinating. So actually, the compensation of the GTM team is about enforcing the already surfaced recommendation by the machine learning algorithms.
Exactly. That's it.
It seems like the future of Google Ads, and not only Google Ads, is automation, automation, automation. Just click one button, get the budget. We're gonna help you to be successful. Because trust us, we know we are sitting on all the data. It's our best interest to give you ROI.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. The end goal is this is my website. I want to sell this pair of shoes. I don't want to spend more than $10 on marketing costs per pair of shoes. Go. And that's it. Right. Then Google will go and sell your shoes. Right. That's really the end vision. And it's getting close to that.
Is it the end of the performance marketing professionals? At least those who own the channel of Google Ads. Should they already start pivoting, or
I mean, it's we're seeing this, right? All the ad agencies they have to shift, right? They have to shift from being a data science shop to it being more an advisor shop across platforms, right? So Google will sell your shoes on the Google network, but if you want to sell on TikTok, if you want to sell on Facebook, and you want to decide how much to allocate on, which channel or which company, that a marketing agency can help you out with.
there is another decision, the creative, I guess.
Yes, yes. Google will also create creatives for you, right?
Oh my god.
Automatically generate mini movies, whatever you want, right? Based on the text on your website um, and the photos that you provide from your website.
We are living in tremendous period of time. Like 10 years ago, it was all manual. You would have to go and, I don't know, through AdWords trainings and continuous learning to try to understand how to manually optimize, start and optimize campaigns. So much easier today.
I know, so much easier and so much more performant, right? You give your CPA, right? You give your cost per action, and Google does it, right? That's simple.
Your learning budget are also probably are less than before, because before, like, you would allocate millions to start to get to the point you actually learn something, understand something, start to get ROI positive. Wow, I didn't think about it before.
Your learning
Cool.
budget is much smaller, and even for example on Facebook will reimburse your learning budget.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing. Maybe you can share maybe like a few like cool learnings that you guys found as part of your tremendous effort to get to the most optimized experience.
I didn't realize this right at Google, but we had the most amazingly efficient, I would call it go-to-market engine. By using machine learning at its core, and using machine learning to then drive your go-to-market, meaning drive your go-to-market, your FLG, your PLG, and having everything aligned, the compensation of your FLG and your PLG, and giving that end visibility on the customers on where they sit and what they should be doing. Everything is aligned. Everything is driven by a machine learning engine that made the go-to-market so efficient.
Even the bigger the late stage startups today, they don't have it. So like everything is still experimentation, obviously, but manual. It's not been driven by algorithmic approach.
Exactly, and Google has been working on it for like 20 years, right? It's that's why the go-to-market motion is so efficient. Right? You can see, right, on LinkedIn, you can look at how many sellers are driving this 100 plus billion, but we're talking a handful of thousands, right? So the ROI, the ROI is through the roof, right? Through the roof. Um, it's
Wow.
quite amazing.
May I ask a question? Because, like you mentioned, so everything, all emotions will be driven by machine learning, and you said PLG and FLG.
Mhm.
What do you mean by FLG? Because I'm not
Oh,
familiar with this term.
field-led growth. So field-led growth, the human component of the growth journey.
Feel-led growth. Wow. Okay, so it's like the human touch. Okay, so like the
Correct.
cell SLG.
Correct.
This. Mm-hmm.
Correct. You want to have your seller and your PLG and the actions that you tell the customers
Uh huh.
all aligned, um, driven by our AI.
Wow, this has opened up so many potential conversation opportunity by where are we actually going, not only in ads space but in PLG space, in, as you said, FLG space, while machine learning will get to the maturity, and not only to the maturity, but once even non-Google companies would be able to adopt such approach, and what challenges are there to adopt such approach, like super interesting topic. Cool. I
Yep.
would love to ask you, like, beyond the ads group and the growth there, which I understand now how it works, what other growth sort of domains were there in Google, which you can just, so I mean, just to understand like how it looks like there.
I would say I would go back to my earlier point where Google is very siloed. Each group or each function like kind of work on its own. Meaning that,
Mm-hmm.
for example, the growth at Nest is going to be very different from the growth in ads and very different from growth in GCP in cloud, right?
Mm-hmm.
We would engage with these folks, but they would have very different, say, either level of maturity or goals. I can talk very little about the other part of the
Okay. Fair
organization
enough. Fair
when
enough.
it comes to growth.
Mm-hmm.
All I
Cool.
can
Cool.
say
Cool.
is ROI and level of maturity was very different. I would say ads was the most advanced, and I got lucky, right, to land there. The other functions are, I would say, a little bit more early on their maturity journey,
Mm-hmm.
and still focused on, I would call it maybe customer acquisition rather than
Mm-hmm.
driving efficiency within themselves and within the customers.
So maybe like one more question about Google, because like working in Google for so many people is like a holy grail. Like they want to get there. They build their entire careers and mindset of how to get to Google. It's a thing. So what is like, in your opinion, of course your opinion is based on your own experience and the niche you worked at, but what's the secret recipe to make it at Google? So you got there. But what do you need to have to actually make it there?
I would say there may be a few points. One is ultimately, at least in ads, right? My performance and my evaluation was very much
Mm-hmm.
driven by my capacity to have impact.
Mm-hmm.
While we had, for example, a very efficient engine, like as I talked about, it's also very noisy and relatively populated company, right? And so being able to not only have the idea but ensuring execution all the way to impact is something that takes skills and learning. There are a lot of I the way I positioned it for my team is, all the friction point that you have to go through for your idea to go all the way to the field or go all the way to product is, you should see that as a filter. So only the best ideas end up being implemented. Um, That's seeing the glass half full. Basically, there's a lot of friction, and it's a very a collaborative organization, and so you got to make sure that everyone is on board with your recommendation or your work.
Mm-hmm.
And so impact ultimately and being able to drive something from idea all the way to execution is, I would say, one trait that is very important. The second is, I would call it GC, like Google calls it GC, right? General cognitive ability. Um, Everyone is relatively smart, right? I was actually very impressed and always kept on my toes. Um, and so if you want to keep making it, you gotta not outsmart your peers, but be at least on par. And so you gotta constantly, in some ways, grow from a personal standpoint. And then the third one is become like a manager and then grow your team and start shaping not only your I would call it little area because there are so many people at Google, but also shape right, the broader part of the organization and be seen as a it's always cross-functional leader if you want to continue rising.
Mm-hmm. Carve your domain.
Carve your domain and be seen as a cross-functional leader who can have perspective on something that is outside of their domain.
Interesting. I love the part about self growth.
Yeah, key, right? Google would say like if you're three times CME, right, constantly meet expectations, you're going to be put on plan, right? Meaning that you cannot
Mm-hmm.
stagnate. They don't want
Mm-hmm.
you to flatline. You have to continue growing.
Mm-hmm. And I guess like working in Google, you're working with a lot of smart people. So even the notion of being surrounded by A-list stars helpful. It pushes you to learn. You learn from others, and also the capabilities of being exposed to different parts of technology, mindsets, opinions within Google ecosystem helps you to sort of understand, uncover, and also dive deep into fascinating topics that obviously like open your mind. And I guess like Google is also very much about like, hey, we want to invest in our employees, so they're like top down giving you the opportunity to just come and take it.
Big time, right? I think that investment in employees, the long-time Googlers kind of forget what it is. But if you've experienced other
Mm-hmm.
companies, that investment in employees is quite amazing, right? Just from a perk
Mm-hmm.
standpoint, from a insurance standpoint, from anything that would make the life of the employees better, Google would do it. Right? To the point where I was so proud of being at Google, right? When they banned, for example, abortion in some states, Google
Mm-hmm.
immediately sent an internal note offering employees who were in these states to relocate in other states if they believe they wanted to one day potentially consider abortion, right? Like I was so proud of Google taking stance to support their employees.
Google is so much more than a workplace.
Oh, exactly. Like they truly, the mantra is don't be evil and help out kind of the world. Like they truly believe this, right? Google could be making so much more money, right? But they very much focus on what is right for the customer, what is right for the user.
Don't be evil. I think it's Google or it's
Yeah, it used to be Google, right? They removed that sentence, but it is truly how they think, right? What is right for the customer? It's not even a question of revenue, it's what is right. And then if it's right, a revenue will come.
then why the hell did you leave and go to Databricks?
You
Fair
know,
question.
my wife asks me that on a regular basis. Um,
It's an
I'll be honest,
honest question to ask.
I, I thought I was going to retire at Google, right?
Hmm.
Spend the rest of my career there. I was pretty much convinced. Um, and then my former manager left for Databricks. My current one at the time at Google was like, "Hey, you're too early to think about retirement. Go take a plunge, do something that is potentially a little bit more exciting. Take some risks,
Hmm.
build something, uh, and then if that were to not work, you can always reconsider Google."
Hmm.
Yeah, I took the plunge and joined Databricks, which has been quite an amazing journey.
Databricks, for those who don't know, it's not just some small trying to survive startup. Databricks is one of the fastest growing startups. I don't know what sector they are. It's hard for me to define. I say I like the way I define is data everything. This is sort of I think Databricks are there. I think they got valuated. I'm not sure, 43 or 48 billion dollars. Obviously, it's nothing compared to like Google numbers, but hey, it's a lot. The engine behind so many AI, different AI developments lately, it's a crucial infrastructure part. So yeah, it's an awesome company to be. Like this is no doubt an excellent alternative.
Databricks is a data and AI platform, right? Just like it's a data everything. And then once you build your stack, you have AI on the top, right? That allows you to do anything that is, say, Gen AI related, right?
Maybe like in 30 seconds again, like to build context for those who don't know what Databricks is all about. Like, what do you mean by data everything? Is it Google Analytics? Like, is it Snowflake? Is it AW? People might not know. Maybe we can give a little bit context, like what actually Databricks are doing, where they're exactly in the market, like maybe other competitors.
Yeah. So we call it the data and AI platform. You can say data everything plus AI. Right? It allows you to, at the core, right, at the bottom, it's basically a data stack, right? So at the bottom, you can
Mm-hmm.
collect all the data that you have across Google Analytics, Salesforce, all your S3 buckets, and so like Amazon storage, and wherever you have data, just put it in all together, um, all in one place, right? And then we have a very important security and access control layer. So you can actually manage who has access to your data. And then on top of that, you can do whatever you want with your data. And so you have all the data engineering work, like data transformation, things like this. You have all the data science work. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have all the data analytics work, right? So it's more simple SQL type thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we even have a visualization, right? And then on top of that, you have all the Gen AI, right? Around
Mm-hmm.
model serving, RAG, vector search, that you can do on either your own model or a pre-trained model that you have improved.
Then someone with a bit of more limited knowledge on like using Databricks in day to day, because I'm not using too much of Databricks. Then I would say, it sounds a little bit like Snowflake. Is it very similar? Like, so what's the difference?
Yeah, I think Snowflake's, Databricks, as well as other, right, like Fabric, right, on Azure, that are more cloud specific or cloud dependent, offer very similar type solution. Um, so yeah, if you know Snowflakes, it's something similar. Though I think Databricks will be a little bit more powerful and go higher up in the stack in the
Mm-hmm.
Gen AI world. Um, Snowflakes comes from the data warehousing world, so very much on the data aggregation, data lake type place. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Databricks come more from the world of data engineering, so it's all the Spark and architecture and the
Mm-hmm.
whole
Yeah, it was
data
built on
management
top of
stack.
Spark, by the way, the open source. It's a very cool, interesting. Like I learned about, didn't know it before.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The two worlds are now colliding in the sense that Snowflakes is going into the data engineering and AI world. Uh, Databricks is going into the data warehousing and AI world. So uh, the companies are indeed very much competitors.
Consolidation.
Consolidation for a
And
gigantic market that is growing
of
very
course,
nicely.
of course, of course. This is the current space, and this is the time we're living at. Um, I would love to understand because we talked about the growth at Google, which is very specific, very unique, very tied to the Google's culture, very tied to the product, to Ed's product. However, Databricks is more of a classical B2B SaaS company that serves the technical persona, DevOps engineers, data engineers, data scientists. Um, how the growth practice in general works at Databricks and how it's different than in Google.
Yep. I'll start with the differences and then I'll tell you how it works. Growth at Databricks, we are much earlier, I would say, on our growth journey. Um, Google had been around, right, for 20 years. We were hundreds of people, not hundreds, but of people working on growth for ads. Databricks is much smaller, as you said, right? And also much younger company. So we are following the same trajectory. We're just earlier on that curve.
Mm-hmm.
So the approach is very similar in the sense that my team is very central, and on one side, right, I work very much with product, right, product and engineering. On the other side, I work a lot with go to market, um, and I work a lot with something that I didn't do as much at Google with all our self-service and marketing world. So the digital guidance is not integrated within product; is actually separate.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are
Mm-hmm.
powered as well by our data scientists um, who help us drive growth. So the pillars are all similar, right? PLG, FLG, and then we have what we call IGE, which is intelligence growth engine um, that kind of powers the growth.
Okay, I understand how PLG might work in Databricks. I guess you guys are, at least for the SMB segments, for the smaller ones, I guess you're trying to provide mm, a kind of self-serve experience for them. So I guess those are segments that are coming, uh, want to try the product, and there is some kind of top from bottom up growth. This is what I understand the PLG motion is at Databricks. Um, so you guys have, I think, free trial, so there is like an acquisition channel there.
Mm-hmm.
What is you said there is the PLG motion one, there is the SLG, or we call it FLG motion two, that you support. By the way, how do you support SLG motion?
So I work a lot with our sales strat and operation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I give them guidance on what needs to be done, right? The type of
Mm-hmm.
role, the type of compensation structure, um, the type of coverage ratios um, that would drive growth, right? And then they actually make it happen.
So SLG motion, to my understanding, like if I'm not understanding it correctly, is about, okay, you have the human touch of sellers that actually sell the product. So like there is the qualify lead, and basically there is a conversation going on with the customer. At some point there is a close. Do you support this process, not by providing PQAs like product qualified, but to guide them of how to work, how to pitch each customer? Like this is the idea,
Less,
or
right? I
you're
would,
like
I
you're
would
training sales, or like it's,
no, right?
I'm just
So
curious how it works.
I will define, I would help define the go-to-market strategy, right? So
Okay.
it's not one kind of seller, right? We can have different types of sellers, right? Uh,
Okay.
Technical seller or
Mm-hmm.
a more generalist seller, right? We can have a
Mm-hmm.
junior seller or more experienced seller.
Mm-hmm.
We can have a solution architect, a senior solution architect, or someone maybe based in Costa Rica, right?
Mm-hmm.
In
Mm-hmm.
terms of overlay, we can have a certain coverage ratio, right? Should we have 3 accounts per seller? Should we have 200? Should we have 2,000? Right? Um, so these are the type of informations that I would guide the go-to-market team so that they actually implement a go-to-market motion that would, I believe, be as efficient as possible.
So this part is very like, I can draw similarities between what you said right now and to what you were doing at Google around guiding the GTM team. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
Correct.
what are the different parts? Completely different ones.
There are a few parts that I would say are much different. One is at Google, right? We used an AI engine, right, to very much
Mm-hmm.
align everything. At Databricks, we are not there yet. Um, we are
You
using.
want to be there.
We want to be there, but in the meantime,
Mm-hmm.
right? We use what we call a propensity score for customer, and
Okay.
that allows us to, instead of using a PQA that is fixed, right, and that we use a propensity score, that allows us to allocate the right support for a customer based on their propensity to spend with us. I'll give you an example. When a customer kind of joins and say that they start using our product, I in growth can have the option to send them an email, send them a banner or a new product notification, or I can send them a solution architect from Costa Rica or a solution architect that is based in the US, right? Or a very senior seller, right? And each will cost me a certain amount, but each will have in some ways a higher or lower, in some ways, conversion rate or efficiency on or
Mm-hmm.
impact on that customer. Right? So that's how
Mm-hmm.
we work at Databricks. We follow the customer. We gather as much information on that customer as possible to help us understand what that customer would be in some ways worth for us, and then we
Mm-hmm.
allocate the different level of resources based on that.
Very much clear. And how does the approach to self-serve work at Databricks?
Yeah, so self-serve can be a complement to the FLG, right? So if you think about our higher segment, you're going
Mm-hmm.
to have FLG plus PLG working together, right?
Mm-hmm. Clear.
With the goal of aligning on message, right? PLG will be doing a lot of, say, email notifications and email guidance and in-product guidance. FLG will
Mm-hmm.
be reaching out and kind of hand-holding the customers along their
Mm-hmm.
journey. And as you go
Mm-hmm.
lower down the the book, right,
Mm-hmm.
for more like SMB like customers, PLG then becomes the primary engine or the sole engine, right, all the way down, uh, using leveraging the same what we call channels, the PLG channels, but driving even more through these channels than we would in the higher part of the book.
I'm hearing what you're saying. It's into like, of course, I'm comparing it to things like from other companies. It seems like the FLG motion will always like. It seems like the FLG motion is the main motion right now. The big bet here is about, okay, how do we become the best hybrid, like how we create the best hybrid motion, how we support the FLG motion the best way based on our machine learning algorithms, based on what we learn. So this is like, obviously the propensity score is just one way. It's just a score to understand how much you should invest, not what to invest and not how to invest. And this will probably be the biggest play for the upcoming years, because I assume that there is quite a heavy complexity to set everything up. I assume there is an expectation for the customer itself to have human touch. So, in case of Databricks, the PLG play, the pure PLG play, because PLG is everywhere, like it's obviously embedded, but the pure self-serve PLG play is secondary.
Second, um, I wouldn't call it secondary. It is primary, right, at the bottom of the book. But you're right that at some point, right, you will need a human touch, right? Whichever segment, at one point, it is still an enterprise sales motion in the sense that
Yes.
at one point the customer will want to talk, for example, rates, right, discounts,
Mm-hmm.
SKUs,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you will have to have a human touch at that point. And
Fair enough. Fair enough. Did your ICP changed in the last 2 years?
what do you define as ICP?
Ideal customer persona, the segments that you are focusing on.
A little bit. So there's the persona and there's the segment, right? The segments we used to, well, we still do, right? We've been doing really well, and we continue doing really well on the top of the book. Now we're seeing new type of customers coming in, either smaller ones who are
Mm-hmm.
we're a little bit more laggards, right, on the data adoption journey, or
Mm-hmm.
some that are brand new, right, that are Gen AI driven, right? So we call them
Mm-hmm.
build on. So you have a bunch of companies, either startup or existing ones who want to use Databricks almost on the back end to offer to power their applications on the front end. So we have. that mix or that pool of customers has evolved, has grown actually quite drastically, and so that potentially kind of older that motion that may have been single focused has evolved into different tiers and different types of customers. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
Two
Mm-hmm.
is the
Mm-hmm.
personas have evolved as well, right? In the
Mm-hmm.
world of enterprise sales motion, we were very driven by the decision makers, right? Who are the decision makers? Let's go and engage with them. That's that's the motion that is successful and that we've been playing with and successfully kind of working with. Um, as the product becomes simpler, as PLG then starts getting more traction, we have more of a practitioner-driven motion that is quite successful now, right? And so then we go when you combine
Mm-hmm.
top-down plus bottom-up motion, then your go-to-market engine is much more efficient, right? Your win rate drastically increase, your customer acquisition costs drastically decreases, and so that's what we've been working on, right? That dual motion, top-down plus bottom-up. It's almost very much PLG, FLG driven, has been quite successful for us.
Obviously, merging those two motions, a strategy that many B2B SaaS companies trying to achieve, very hard to do. So, like, I'm curious, like, what, like maybe example of like one big challenge that you guys have, uh, successfully merging those motions, maybe opportunity or challenge.
Yeah, I'll give you one that we had to think through, right? Previously, we used to be what we call a commit first company, meaning that we would push these contracts with the customers almost as early
Mm-hmm.
as possible so they would quote unquote commit with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
As we focus now on a two motion, bottom up and top down, we now switch to being more customer success centric, right? Consumption driven motion. Right? If the customer is successful, they'll consume more. That's all that matters, right? Let's make the customer successful. We had to change the muscle that we had built within our go-to-market team, right? They were commit still focused. They were decision maker centric, right? And so engaging with the practitioners, making sure that these customers are successful is something that was not there in the first place, right? That we had to build.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Our
Mm-hmm.
hunters used to what we call withdraw, right, or withheld, meaning that they would say, "Hey, if you sign a contract with me, I can give you free training, or I can launch my essay to help you out." Right? That would then be a give get type situation. The customer then would sign a contract. In the new world, is, oh, looks like you need a migration. Let me invest and give you an SA right now, even if my ROI in the short term is low, but I'm going to give it to you. I don't expect anything from you. If we are successful, then I would assume that you're going to spend more with us. Huge
Mm-hmm.
mindset shift, right, for our sales
Freemium
team.
approach to GTM.
Exactly, right. So it's we had to very much retrain and build different muscles, right, within our go-to-market team.
I feel that you brought a little bit of your philosophy from Google to Databricks. The being successful is what drives customer engagement, later on monetization for the company and financial success. I feel like this philosophy is where you're taking Databricks, at least from the GTM motion perspective too.
I'm not the only one, right? But yes,
No, of course.
yes, but
Hmm.
that's really the goal that we're aiming for, right? And we're doing this from a GTM standpoint, but then it translates as well in product, right? So we work heavily on the product
Hmm.
side to make it as simple as possible, as user friendly as possible, for users to for the practitioners, right, to be successful with our product.
Just curious how your team looks like in Databricks.
Yeah. So my team, I have my direct team, and then I have all the folks who are indirect teams, right? So my team is relatively small, but I have dedicated folks in each of the functions, right? So dedicated folks in product, but then Eng, dedicating folks in PMM, product marketing, self-service, and then go to market, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Hmm.
my team is mainly made of strategy and analytics and data science. and then I have folks in the different functions who actually drive execution of the more centrally defined strategy.
Do you guys separate by, for example, different pods, such as like acquisition pod, activation pod, engagement, new revenue, expansion, or things like that? No.
No,
Hmm.
no.
Interesting. This is like different than so many like big B2B SaaS, but again, it's a very different product.
We do differ. Like if I think about the customer journey, right? We have teams that are more focused on one part than another, right? So my marketing folks are going to
Hmm.
focus on the marketing folks are going to focus on everything that is pre-sign up, right? They will
Hmm.
create awareness, drive intent, and then ultimately drive towards sign up, right? And then PMM would come in usually and drive the first kind of part of the journey from a PLG standpoint, right? And then self-service will usually take over and continue on that journey. So you can see the segmentation from that
A
front.
remark for the audience, you see, you don't have to take all the known frameworks. You can create your own and still create an extremely successful growth department motion with a huge impact on the business. And if like you will abstract your growth experience from Chile, it starts even in McKinsey. From McKinsey, Google, Databricks, and given advice for growth leaders, like how they should approach growth, like, or maybe the superpowers, the practices, I don't know, anything that you can suggest to leaders to pay attention to be actually successful in growth job.
Yeah, that's a broad question.
I know.
Like from let me think, right? At least one for me, growth is
Hmm.
at the beginning, right? I would say it's just about as much about execution as it is about evangelization. Meaning that when I
Hmm.
joined Databricks, right, growth was very much supported by our CEO and exec team. Um, but growth for me is a long-term play. Like
Hmm.
I bring the next generation of customers. I build a product that, will take maybe like I think like a year from now, right? And a big part of the organization, right, say finance, sales, right, they are quarterly focused. Right? They are very ROI driven. So growth is for me a CLV ROI motion and being able to educate the organization on the importance of thinking long term, driving long term growth over in quarter performance is something that I had to spend quite some time at Databricks evangelizing. I'll give you an
Hmm.
example. Even
Yep.
you would
Yes.
think, for example, on product, right? You'd be, product, this is all about UX and simplification for the user. Nope, right? Product is all about, not all about, but it is cool to work on the most advanced feature on streaming or Gen AI, right? And
Hmm.
serve like our top customers on that. It was a little bit less of a focus to make our onboarding journey simpler, right?
Hmm.
Or or credit card, entering process, one click, right? Or looking at our fraud solution for credit card a little bit more, right? Um, so shifting, for example, R&D dollars towards, the earlier part of the funnel takes time, right? So that's something that, as a growth leader, I had to go and do. It has little impact in the short term, but it is required for me to be successful as a growth leader for the long term in the organization, basically.
Interesting. Very different from any, like, I wouldn't say it's different, but a little bit from approaches of like, okay, we're in growth, we have a team focused on, acquisition from product, and the goal is new customers coming in. This is the quarterly goal. Go experiment, do bunch of optimizations, do sometimes bigger bet, do sometimes innovation, sometimes, but be careful because you need to hit your goals, your quarterly goals. And every quarter the same thing, which is 70% optimization, 30% bigger bets, which if are successful are communicated later to the company, which the company decides maybe core product to do something with.
Mhm.
Your approach is, yes, we need to do optimizations, obviously, but this is the 30%. The 70% is getting ready for the next year, even it's innovation, evangelizing processes, looking, not pushing yourself too hard by setting 3 months goals, but pushing yourself extremely hard to set and make the goals in 12 months a reality, while not forgetting that you need to serve the shorter term goals as well, but as, not as a secondary, but as an additional complementary.
Correct,
Mm-hmm.
correct. And my goal, right,
Mm-hmm.
is to I call it like I got to get an army, right? When I joined, right, there was one PM on growth. Now we have a VP in our organization. Right? By evangelizing and showing the importance of growth, I was able to get oh, an army, right, and impact the creation of an army on growth, right? That's what I mean by it's very important
Mm-hmm.
to evangelize.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the proper support that truly invests in growth, right? That's one point. Second reaction to what you said is my short-term attainment is going to be done by GTM. Right? Go to market, they are on quality focused. If they are successful, I am successful. Right? That's really how I see it. Product is a little bit more longer term. It can be 3 months, 6 months, but I will achieve my target in the short term thanks to go to market. So I spend a lot of time with our sellers and our overlay team, our product specialists, to understand what do you need, right? What do you need this quarter to be successful, right? And I'm going to go focus on making them successful, getting the right support for them so they can achieve my target in the short term.
How experimentation look like in this culture?
There's experimentation as a whole and there's product experimentation. So experimentation as a whole is a muscle that we have and that we're developing, I would say. Um, so we are running a bunch of experimentation, and especially now that the company is relatively large and I would call it a relatively well-oiled machine, experimentation then becomes the core engine to drive innovation. Right? So it is a priority. Um, Anecdotally, I just did a presentation on piloting and experimentation to our COO org yesterday, right? Educating kind of the rest of the org on the importance of experimentation and how to do that, right? So it is a core priority for the business, and it is happening. That's experimentation for the business. Now still have to fight, right, a little bit to get my experiments going. Um, Experiments on the go-to-market, experiments on the product side. Like it's always, I would say, a fight for resources. Do I want to allocate resources towards execution, or do I want to allocate resources towards piloting that may impact, right, uh, my in-quarter or even in-year chaos, right? Given that we're ramping up a little bit for an IPO at some point, right, or at least we have some pretty aggressive goals. Um, we always have that trade-off that we have to work against.
Because the end of the day, when the goals are long term, especially when the goals are long term, like you need to get some confidence, you need to increase the confidence around your hypothesis along the way. And this is where experimentation drives learning. Without it, it's just opinions or
Correct,
post factum numbers.
correct, 100%.
Fair enough. Actually, it's an amazing segue to the last small part of our, almost the last small part of our conversation, leadership. Because when we were talking about long term goals, I was thinking, what does it take to actually get to the point in which you join a company and you shift, I think in your case, shift the mindset of like, okay, growth is not right now impact, growth is 12 months impact. And one of the things that I was thinking about is obviously you need to have a crazy buy-in and trust and rapport with leadership, which is not the easier thing, to build, because building relationships takes experience. So like, I wonder, like, what is your leadership philosophy in general?
Yep. Um, so I think for me, the I would think about it in maybe in two ways, right? To tie it to your point, right? There's leadership for my team, and then there's leadership within the organization. Um, when I think about leadership for my team, I'm someone who really likes to empower and grow my team, right? Maybe an IC or maybe a manager, right? I will understand where they sit within their growth journey and kind of put them right at that threshold. Be like, hey, your next level is this. Um, for example, someone in my team right now who just had a birth conversation, I want them to start becoming more of a GM, right? They have mastered the IC role, they've mastered the manager role. I want them to think
Mm-hmm.
GM, right? Be responsible for the impact of uh, what your
Mm-hmm.
team
Mm-hmm.
is driving.
Personal growth. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So personal growth, I will put them right at that threshold. I will let them kind of fail and guide them, right? Support them until they can start uh, playing the role that I expect them to play, right? So uh,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I call empowering and driving personal growth. Um, what I tell my team, right, when someone joins my team, the second thing that I say, and as part of that personal growth, going back to point one, is I expect my team to be ahead of me on whatever they are responsible for. Meaning that I'm going to set the vision with them. I'm going to be here to help them out. But at some point, and relatively quickly, I expect them to be ahead of me to be the thought leader for whatever they are responsible for.
Sure. Sure.
Second is what I say is we're all on the same boat. And by that, I mean, don't hide anything from me. Don't come back. Like if there's a yellow flag, if there's a roadblock that you see ahead, just share it. Right? We're all in the same boat. If there's a mistake that's been made, just share it. Like whatever happens, like we're all in the same boat. Like your success is my success is your success type thing. Very important. Right? So we're one team. And then the third dimension is that I took from McKinsey is we do these problem solving sessions, right? I always believe that it's easier to think when you speak out loud and engage with others than when you think on your own. So we have this problem solving session concept where everyone in my team can bring topics, and I would expect them to bring topics on a semi regular basis for us to problem solve what they are working on, right? I believe that bringing a different set of eyes on a given problem will lead automatically to a better outcome. Right? So that's
It's such a simple thing to do, and not many are doing that. How much do you allocate to those sessions?
I actually allocate maybe too much time. I
No,
I
I'm not sure.
It depends. Like on my team, maybe 3 hours a week, right? All in, which is relatively
Okay.
consequent, right?
Okay.
But I want to make sure, like, because I engage with other folks within the organization, I want to be able to pass this on to my team, and maybe I have this concept that whatever comes out of my team has my in some ways stamp, or I want a certain level of quality, or whatever comes out of my team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to make sure
100%.
that we're at that level.
Yeah, there is a certain standard to uphold too, and you want
Exactly.
to make sure. And also, like, as a leader, like, you're it's not about pushing and forcing ideas at all. This is not the point. But your point is to be critical and to evaluate and to test proof the concepts that are presented and the solutions that are there. And it's okay. At the end of the day, it's your mutual responsibility, and both of you should sign off on it.
And that leads right to my second point, right, on what it is to be a leader within an organization.
Yeah, leading up. Hmm.
By upholding to a high standard and a high quality of output for my team, I build trust across the organization. Right? Who am I, right, in the first place to come in and tell someone like, hey, this is the strategy that you should be following, right? Who am I to tell the product team there should be more growth PMs? Who am I to tell the go-to-market strategy VP that hey, they need more like overlay role, right? It's only by having built credibility through consistent delivery of high quality throughput that I will build that type of relationship, right? So that is a core component. And then yeah, it's about building trust, right? Being seen as a
How do you do that?
yeah, it's the way I started, right? At Databricks, I was actually, I don't know if I should say it, but a little bit shocked by the lack of interest, but the the lack of knowledge when it comes to growth and long term success, right?
In many extremely successful, even post IPO companies, there is still a lack of knowledge about growth. I feel that this practice is something of a gap, which creates an opportunity as well. But I can completely share, unless the company is pure PLG and has been growing from this motion, like Canvas style, then growth is very centric. Otherwise, specifically SLG companies, FLG as you said, that's starting to spin PLG, nope, not that much.
Yeah,
Very
exactly,
lacking.
exactly, right. So I mean, the way I started, right, is when I went around and kind of spent time with a bunch of the leaders, and I started looking
Mm-hmm.
for what I would call ally, right? Who are the folks who are actually receptive to that long term growth? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I found a few, right? I was happy to find that at the senior leadership level. We had our CEO
Mm-hmm.
backing up for backing us, for example. But I found support, for example, in
Mm-hmm.
sales dev, right? I've been working with the sales dev team from
Cool.
day one. Amazing. Right? These folks were like super receptive, willing to do pilots, and so I started there, right? We started demonstrating the value, right, through the sales dev team of a practitioner motion, for example, and data science was able to demonstrate the amazing ROI that we were getting by engaging with our practitioners. Oh, okay, so then started getting more and more folks from a go-to-market standpoint, and then the whole go-to-market team started paying more attention to what we were doing. And then on the meantime, right, on the
Mm-hmm.
product side, right, I started like kind of engaging with the leaders, educating them on the importance of growth, right? That yes, the advanced features were very important, but the basic ones were, let's put it in nicely, right? Had There was a high opportunity, right? Simple things, right? And so by driving this education, right, we we had, for example, our senior leadership on the product side go through the onboarding journey, like hey, and they did it on their own, right? Post informing them that there may be some broken glass on the
Mm-hmm.
product. They went through it and they were like, oh my god, so many low hanging fruits. And that started shifting the mindset, right? We went down from the CEO, like a CPO, and then VP, and now we have an entire team that is dedicated to improving the onboarding journey and focusing on the growth, right? So it took a little bit more time on the product side.
Find advocates for you, show value, bank on quick wins, build trust gradually. Uh, being aggressive and pushy and demanding like you deserve trust will never work.
Correct.
You should understand it takes time and you should be extremely smart about it and patient
Yes. The patient side is hard for me, but yes.
for everyone. Amazing, very insightful. Thank you so much. If we can jump into very quick questions, I have a few of them done. Um, okay, so a round of quick questions. Ready?
Go.
Cool. Let's do it. What do you hire for and what do you fire for?
I hire. So here's how I'm thinking about it. One, on the hiring side, this is key, right? I over invest on the hiring front because if I invest the right folks,
Mm-hmm.
then my life is so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
I look for
Mm-hmm.
right, and I will hold a very very high bar. And I when I work
Mm-hmm.
with my recruiters, right, I tend to drive them crazy so we can find the diamond in the rock. But then when they join, they outperform, and it's amazing for me, right? So Hiring, I take that extremely seriously. Um, when I look
Good.
for candidate, I will tend to value GCA, so general cognitive ability, or test that someone is smart in some ways over a lot of other dimensions. Because I believe that I can train
Mm-hmm.
a person to then be successful in their role. I look less for experience in the role and more for the capacity to quickly learn, be a problem solver, and a go-getter. Right. So if
Mm-hmm.
I had to
Mm-hmm.
choose
Mm-hmm.
one, that's one. Right. Two maybe more like team
Now I
players.
understand why it's hard for recruiters. Like, go filter for it on LinkedIn.
Yes. I just hired, for example, right? My last hire was in Costa Rica. Go and figure out like how do you find GCA like on LinkedIn, like in Costa Rica, right? From the US. But we did, right? And we hired an amazing, we just hired someone amazing in Costa Rica. Um, Fire for me, I truly hope like first that someone that I have personally hired, I would not have to fire them unless it's for economical reasons. Right? If I hold the bar and if I've done my job right in upfront, I sincerely hope, and I never had that case where I was wrong up front that I had to fire them later. I did have to let people go for performance reasons. Um, and yes, performance for me is going to be usually the core factor. I will be fully transparent with folks who are underperforming, right, under expectations. We'll put them on a
Mm-hmm.
plan. We'll follow up very closely with them, and then if the person and clearly set expectations, right, and then if the person were to not meet expectations, then
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, did you had cases of performance improvement plan work? Ambivalent about this one.
I I'm thinking not in my
From my
yeah.
experience, it's like when person is going to PEEP, unless there is a reason, a clear reason why, and this reason can be attended. Usually, it creates a lot of, let's say, negative vibe around the situation, and it's very rare cases in which there is a performance improvement plan and there is not one particular reason of two, a few that you can attend. And I don't think there are many cases in which the person ends up to be top performer, and this is what you drive for in a team.
Correct. So the PIP may not work immediately, but it can be an opportunity for the person to find another team. Right? Maybe they may not be suited as well for the role
True.
that I
This
was
one is true.
expecting, but maybe they'll find
Mm-hmm.
something else within the organization. Um,
True.
that I've seen work,
Mm-hmm.
and especially right when you inherit a team, right? There will be some kind of mismatch, right? Some folks may, for example, believe that the role should have been theirs. Right? That's going to be hard to, through a PIP, change, right? So maybe another role in the org would be better.
Like, it's hard to throw a peep in this case. For example, the role should be mine because it's more of a toxic environment that is being created through a particular disappointment. It's not it is performance, because performance is a few things bundled together, but in this case I would definitely
Exactly.
not
The,
go
the
with the peep.
symptoms are going to be performance, but the underlying components are very much internal disappointment. And so I wouldn't
Hmm.
believe that the person is not right for the company, but probably not right for the team.
Super. And next question, so let's try to make the time. So what was your biggest failure?
Selling my NVIDIA stocks.
Oh, you sold your Nvidia stocks?
Well, I was part of NVIDIA in 2006, right?
Yeah, who knew?
Who knew, right? NVIDIA was plateauing, right? Everyone was leaving back in 2011. I dumped. Today, I would have been very, very rich.
Well, I dumped some bitcoins many years ago, so I can feel the
Yeah,
pain.
same there. Yeah.
Which healthy habits or routines empower you daily?
That's something I've been very proactive about when leaving Google. I think at Google I was working around the clock and maybe not taking care of myself enough. Um,
Hmm.
so now I do two things. One is I work out regularly and I put it in my calendar, and this is non-negotiable, 3 times a week. Um,
Same
and
here.
two is sleep. Right? Thank I have 3 children. Um, I try to go to bed not too long after them, maximize my sleep to the extent possible. Because I know that, for example,
Hmm.
right on Saturday morning, everyone's awake at 6 a.m., right? All the kids are ready. So I try to sleep, and because I know that at 6 a.m. everybody will be awake, I plan accordingly to go to bed relatively early.
This is awesome. Sleep is crucial. Without sleep, you cannot function. Without sleep, you cannot train. Without sleep, you cannot think really clearly. Without sleep, you are much more emotional. People underestimate sleep, not only in terms of the quantity, but also the quality of it, which is extremely important. So, this is the number one thing to do. 100% agree with that. Who are the two, three people you're looking at when you want to learn? Or not when you want to learn, but you're looking at in general as maybe role model at particular topics.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I'll choose like famous role models, right? We talked about NVIDIA. I admire Jensen,
Hmm.
right? So Jensen is NVIDIA CEO. He built for the future and relentlessly built for the future, right? When I was there, right, we tried mobile phone, we tried tablets, we tried hypercomputing, we tried like self-driving cars, and all self-driving car worked, right? But we would do these massive bets, right? He would bet the farm each time, right? And then works, right? And then like
Wow.
AI, right? It keeps on like, but it looks like those are luck. It's not luck. The guy constantly builds for the future, thinks 10 years ahead, always, always. And it doesn't think tomorrow, right? Like everyone follows the NVIDIA cards, like the NVIDIA chips that are today in the market. NVIDIA, right, the whole engineering team is already working on the chips that will be released 4 years down the road, right? There is a 5 year delay from the time you design to the time you tape out, right? So already the company is working 5 years ahead. He's working 10 years ahead, right? So that long term view, that relentless drive to go big and find that next S curve, amazing, right? And it paid off.
He also, I think, said in one of the videos, his talks, that if he knew how hard the journey would have been, he would never start it.
Yeah, because we all see the successes. I was in the company when we failed, like we kept on failing, right? We a funny story, right? I My keychain is an NVIDIA Tegra chip. We had so many
Hmm.
Tegras that we couldn't sell that we ended up making keychain out of it, right? That's the magnitude of the failures that we had back then, right? It's
Crazy.
so I think that's one.
Hmm.
Two is I I like Elon Musk, and I know
Hmm.
it's easy to say, but for me there are two things that I very admire in the guy. One is he drives a super efficient business, right? And I strive for that efficiency myself in my team and in the way I operate. And when it came to Twitter and we moved 2/3 of the company and the company still works, that's striving for efficiency, right? I do believe that most of the tech companies are bloated, right? You don't need that many folks by far. Uh, so in the way I run my organizations, I strive for that efficiency, um, and I very admire how he does that at scale. I may not be
Super,
popular in that
super.
thinking, but I very much look
Mm,
into that.
think recently I heard him speaking about like processes and workflows and how you create an efficient workflow. And he was like, don't scale, don't automate until you simplify the hell out of everything. Simplify as much as possible the decisions, simplify as much as possible the investments, the feedback loops, everything. Only then scale, only then invest. So, uh, well, he is a role model, like for many. 100% on that as well. What is the one extensive piece of advice you can give to growth leaders?
I'd go back to the notion of long term thinking, right? Growth is about long term success.
Hmm.
Wherever you join, right? Even if you join like a pre-IPO company, like, and everyone is, when I joined Databricks, I thought everyone was working towards the IPO. Not at all, right? We are working towards the long term success of the business, which is exciting, but maybe not on the long term from bringing the next generation of customers at first. But getting that long-term mindset is key, right? Uh, and building for that.
Can I challenge it for a sec? Because like I 100% get it, and it makes sense to me. And honestly, I would love to be in a company or working with team that have this long term mindset. But then, if I would challenge it, I would ask, would this approach also fit early stage companies?
I would say maybe, right, and probably yes, right.
Maybe.
Um,
Hmm.
in the sense that even if you're early stage, building for you're building to build an actual company, right? You're not building to fail,
Hmm.
right? So I would keep that long-term mindset with me. Even if I would look for, kind of in quarter performance or like right away, like I want things to move, I would still have that long-term mindset, long-term view of where I am aiming towards, right?
With short term view, you will get a specific short term success, but you will not build a generational company.
Exactly. And generational may mean next year or in 2 years, right? Like the way I think about Databricks can go for years, right? There is so much more that we can be doing. Um, Same thing at Google, right? And so having that mindset, that long-term mindset is key.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was extremely insightful. I learned a lot and I personally had pleasure.
Cool. Thank you, Eugene.
So
Same here.
appreciate your time.